Hi everyone, welcome to another live stream. Today we have Thomas Fluharty, the amazing Thomas Fluharty. He is well known for his blue line drawings. I don't want to say caricatures, but because it has elements of caricature in it, but it's not just caricature, it's much more than that. Um, but besides his line drawings, he does editorial work, paintings. I first learned about your work when I was in New York. I think it was in 2001, and I was
Wow.
at the Society of Illustrators, and well, you know they have amazing art there, but there was this one painting of a comedian with a cigarette. I don't, I, don't- I don't
Yeah.
I don't know even know his name, and a Rat Pack, I think, Frank
Yeah.
Sinatra, and these paintings that just blew me away. And
Awesome.
I had
Thank
never heard of you,
you.
and when I came home, I looked it up in the annual, and only years later we connected online. But it was
Sure.
so nice, that your work already spoke to me long before I knew you, and then we got got to become friends. And beside an amazing artist, you are just a great friend, and
Right.
you've helped me so many times in my career when I just had questions about things and stuff. You're always there with good advice, and you're so you have a big heart, and you're a
Awesome.
giving person. So it's an honor to have you on the live stream, and welcome.
Oh man, that's great. It's just great to be together because I love you dearly, and we've had great times together. And we get to hang out and laugh, and I love watching you bust it up. Like when you start laughing really hard. You were talking to someone, whatever your buddy's name was, and you just started laughing so hard. Your whole face just lit up, and it made me laugh. And we were in Vienna together. That was cool. We were in LA, or Santa Monica, or wherever we were at Lightbox last year, and that
Yes.
was awesome. And I didn't know who you were until I had CA, communication arts, and excuse me, I just ate, so if I'm burping and drinking, forgive me. But basically, I first discovered you in CA, and you did the Beatles on this ripped paper sort of thing, and I was like, "Who the heck is this guy?" And and I didn't know you were a kid. I didn't know you were like 12 years old at the time. And so I think I shot you a note. I think I shot you an email or something and said, "Dude, your work is insane. This is so cool." And we just became buddies from then. And that was before Facebook, and that was before like any social media. I think we were just talking through emails and stuff, and that so it's weird. I didn't even know you knew who I was, or that you'd seen anything that I did, from Society of Illustrators or anything. But yeah, it's just been a huge mutual admiration. And again, like I was thinking about you and what you're doing. First of all, you're really a humble guy, which is awesome. I love that, a humble artist, and but your skills. I tell you this a lot, so I'm not trying to puff you up, but this is just the truth. It's like your skill sets are so fat. They're so rounded out. Not everybody can do a lot of different things well, and you're one of those rare artists that you can ink, you can draw, you can paint, you can sketch, you can do watercolor, you can do pastel, and they're all at this and plein air paint. There's this knowledge and an understanding that you have that's pretty massive, and it's cool, and it's
Well,
always
thanks.
inspiring. So yeah, it's always inspiring. So
Thanks. Well, that's a well, thank you so much. But it's also a great introduction to the topic I want to talk with you about. That is style, because I think style is this intriguing word that keeps coming up with people asking, how did you find your style? And I just I'm just curious about what even style is, because you
Hmm.
mentioned that I use different techniques,
Yeah.
and does that alter my style? Or when I use different subjects, when I paint a landscape or when I ink a comic character, does that mean that then I have a different style, or is the fact that I do it with my knowledge, does that make it still the same style? I'm curious what your thoughts
Yeah.
are.
Yeah, it's interesting. I know your style, and what I mean by that is I know your DNA. Basically, it's really, I think style is who you are. It isn't a coat you put on. It isn't like watch me throw this baseball like a girl. No, if I throw a baseball like a girl, it's because I throw a baseball like a girl. And that's bringing down the girls. I'm not meaning. I mean, there are some chicks that could throw a baseball better than dudes. So let me clarify. Let me save myself here.
Yes.
I have this thing where if you're going to date my daughter, I give you a baseball, and if you throw a baseball like a girl, you can't date my daughter because you got to throw like a guy. You got to throw good. You got to throw cool, and not all guys can throw a baseball. Here, let me turn this around. So, sorry.
Do I need
Um,
to save you here?
Where was I? No, it's like the point is this: if you throw a baseball in a girly way, that's just the way you throw it. But if you try to throw like a guy or try to throw in a manly way or whatever, it's like, these are things that have to just be worked on, and they have to be worked out. So if a guy throws a baseball 1,000 times, he's he starts throwing it the same way, and he starts not throwing it a certain way that's wrong, and he starts throwing it and working on everything that's right. And because he threw that baseball 10,000 times, he's actually throwing it in a high with much more efficiency. He's throwing it a certain way. So the other guy picks up a baseball and he throws it completely different because that's who he is.
Hmm.
And so that style, it isn't because the guy just made a choice. I'm going to throw this way today. No, you're going to throw that ball enough, and eventually it will be your way.
Hmm.
You know what I'm saying? And so yeah, it just goes back to just something repetitively. The way you do it, it's just going to eventually come out. And yeah, I could copy Sargent, I could copy Picasso, I could actually try to mimic you, and then everybody would say, "Oh, you're copying this person," and that's when it's not my style. But my style has just it's basically a pattern of, and it's a matter of 36 years. You know what I'm saying? So
Hmm.
it's like I'm not trying to do something. I'm not saying I didn't wake up one morning and go, "I will draw in a blue line in this style." I just grabbed the pencil and started drawing. But there were all these years underneath all of that. You know what I'm saying?
Hmm.
So when we were at Lightbox, this guy was like, "Dang man, your drawings are so cool." And I was like, "Thank you." And I was like, "What you're really looking at is 35 years of drawing.
Yeah.
You're not looking at a style that I just
Mm.
cooked up one day."
Yeah.
You
It's
know
your
what I
it's
mean?
your
Like,
complete personality is in there. Your
yeah,
life
and
is
this,
in there.
yeah, it's all the influences that I studied and looked at and that moved me. These are all the things that I've sort of took note of, made mental notes, practiced, studied them. Like I'm stealing from a lot of different people in one sense. We all are inspired by people. Like every time I draw a hand, I'm basically inspired by like there's about 6 artists that really shaped my thinking, and I basically stole the things that I loved from them,
Mm.
and that's legit. It's totally legit. Picasso said, "Amateurs imitate, but professionals steal," and you know, so I have these major influences that have been present with me as my friends, and then eventually I started running and shook the shackles off, like run Forrest run, and then the leg braces fall off and he's running. So it's like these things help me to figure out, and they're like they protected me and guided me, and then eventually they fell away, and now what you're seeing is hopefully more me than anyone. But like I remember looking at a hand Bob Peak drew, Every Which Way But Loose, and it was this fist, and I was like, dang, look at those knuckles, man, that's awesome. And I was like 18 at the time, and I just remember ripping that cover off of that magazine and keeping it. Now every time I draw hands, I don't get that out, but I remember that. You know, there's something else really cool. If you look at, I remember James Bennett. He's an illustrator, American illustrator, and he did this cover for the Mad magazine at one point, and it was just Alfred on a snowboard. And when I saw his folds, I was like, dang, that's really cool. So James paid attention to the folds, and he said, hey, there's a story here. You know, it wasn't that I copied James, but he showed me, hey, there's a story in folds. There's a story. Don't just copy a fold. Tell a story with a fold.
Yeah, yeah.
You know what I mean?
It's nice. You mentioned there are these few artists that, you know, a lot of artists inspire you, but there are these few artists that became part of your DNA. Is that correct?
Yeah. Right
so
on.
I found that a lot of artists have that you know, somewhere in your life, you know, you see their work and it just hit you, and it feels almost like family or something. You recognize what they're doing, and it becomes part of you.
Right
and
on.
It's funny when you said that, because I realized that a lot of artists have that and when you know it, you can see it in their style. You can see that that's what they really love, and not in the sense that it's literally the same work, but it clearly has some of the same vibe to it, same feel to it.
Yeah. And I think as you said the word love, I think that is a crucial word that defines and can shape what we do. So I'm not trying to be a cowboy artist. I just find myself captivated by them, and I love shapes. I'm trying to do something. I love horses. I don't love horses. I love drawing horses, but I find them unbelievable. Like, they're fascinating. If I see one, I stop and look at them like, oh my gosh, look at that creature. And it's just like this bizarre thing. So if I'm drawing them, it's because I love things. I love concepts. I love shapes. And I'm trying to draw in a certain way, and sometimes I succeed and sometimes I don't. And the genre or the subject is a moot point. Like, if I start drawing cats, it might take me a while to learn cats, but eventually I think I might draw them in my own way. You know what I mean? But it's really what we love. So if I leave, so one of the things I absolutely love, and I found that I loved, is I used to love looking at Frederick Gruger's drawings of horses, and just drawings. And I was always like, man, these drawings are so cool. So when I finally started drawing and putting that up on posts and just pursuing drawing primarily, it was because I loved it. You know what I mean? Like, I love that.
Yes.
And so if I'm leaving in a painting translucency, it's because I saw Corot do a cave that was translucent, and I remember that. You know, so it's like, these are things that we love, and eventually in our work, it's like the top 12 hits, the top 10 hits of what I love, you know. Oh, yeah. I see that you love Gruger. Oh, I see that you love this. I see that you love that. I see that you love this. So that's what style is. It's like the things that I absolutely love to do.
Yeah, the thing I also hear in there is that, or at least, I don't know if I hear it in there, but I think I do, is that it's not a conscious thing where you decide this is my style. It's, you know, because you love it and you remember it, it turns out a certain way. It's not a specific choice. Is that right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Because what I just did this 6 fan art challenge thing.
Yeah.
And for me, it is really a challenge to start a thing like that, because I do have to think, you know, I don't feel like I have a style or a way of doing things or a system. So I need to think, you know, how am I going to do this? And, you know, if when it comes to technique, I'm going to use paint or ink or pencil, or and I'm going to do caricature or character design. And um,
Yeah.
for me, I feel like, and it's not that that's a bad thing, but it's not a given for me. It's not a natural thing where I feel like this is what I draw. This is what I do. I can I can imagine what your six fan art drawings would look like. Not that I know exactly what they would look like, but for me,
Right.
your voice is so clear. So I like, wow, that would be amazing. The way you did the Hellboy drawing. I
Yeah.
imagine drawings
Yeah.
like that. And
Right.
and for me, it's like I'm not sure if I'm still getting, starting to find where I live when it comes to style, or that it's just who I am,
Yeah. Yeah.
where I feel like it's not like I'm all over the place, but I'm just, for me, drawing and painting is this realm, and I can
Yeah.
wander. I can walk through that realm and think
Hmm.
and I try to think of the principles that lie underneath. And when you think of shape and when you think of color
Hmm.
and perspective, you can decide, this time am I going to use perspective, or am I going to
Right.
have this flat drawing, and am I going
Right.
to use color, or so it's just like a DJ with the
Yeah.
mix table, and just
Yeah.
decide, okay, I'm going to add this and leave that out. And
Right.
that for me, those are challenge. And also because it's this world, this universe that is so huge, that for me it's like I this way I can keep discovering. And I haven't well I think I do have my preferences. I love drawing
Yeah.
people, and
Yeah.
more than I love drawing buildings, for example. So I do have my preferences, but I think it's not in a way that it has one technique or one way of doing things. So, and
Yeah.
sometimes uh, I would love to have that, but it has it hasn't
Yeah.
happened yet. It's just like,
Yeah.
wow, how relaxing would it be if you could just start drawing and everything would be clear. What you want to
Yeah.
do. So,
Yeah. I was going to say this too. The one thing that is present in your work that is you, and it's really a part of me as well, is exaggeration,
hmm,
and uh, um, sort of like it's sort of like judicial exaggeration. So it's like you use it judiciously. You use it just the right amount.
hmm,
You don't pour it all over like, yeah, watch how great I am at exaggerating. Aren't I awesome? And really what you're saying is, and I feel this way as well, like I'm not going to stop exaggerating my drawings or pushing and pulling
hmm,
them. I'm not, because I actually had a conversation with someone. I was like, man, I don't think this Western cowboy world is going to get me, and I don't really care, but I would like to sell my cowboy stuff or whatever, but I'm not going to just do this dumb cowboy on a horse. Like, I have to push, I have to
hmm,
exaggerate. And so you did a drawing of a girl that was like a slight little 3/4, and there was just a little push on it.
hmm.
And that's hard to do. And people that poo-poo, exaggeration or the representational, stuffy, snobby crowd, not all of them, but there's a hierarchy that they put you up against, and like, but I find representational easy. I find it like it's easy to make something look like something. That's cake. What's really hard is to say something.
Hmm.
That's really tricky, and that's what that little drawing you did was so cool. So what I was getting at is, as you're doing these things and you're working on just creating, you always are going to be true to what you love and what you've been moved by. And
Hmm.
so this slight exaggeration, even just the white dog you did on a white rug, you could even push the white. You could push the paw. You could push the floor.
Hmm.
You could exaggerate slightly. I'm just saying it is such a valuable skill set. It really is. And
Hmm.
I think that, at least for me, those are the things I absolutely love about what you do.
Yeah, it's interesting because for me, it's like I mentioned, you have this universe of possibilities when you set out to create something, and for me, exaggeration is one of these tools you have, and I wouldn't see why I would leave that out, and it's closely related to shape, using shapes and pushing shapes and
Yeah.
looking at your painting in terms of shapes. And when you look at great painters such as Sargent or Dean Cornwell or Norman Rockwell,
Right. Right.
they push their shapes. And I often think that when there's a slight, Sargent, you look at the painting and it looks like a completely correctly proportioned woman that's standing
Right.
there. But
Right.
when you look at
Yeah.
the arm, it's an arm that's twice as long as a regular arm actually
Right.
is. And he
Right.
used that because he's creating a painting. He's not,
Right.
and there is no one who is able now to go back and check if that was exactly,
Right
what
on.
that arm looked like. It's
Right.
about the painting. And exaggeration is just such a thing where you have your reference, but you are the artist. You are the one in charge. So
Yeah,
you
that's
can
right.
decide, because everything you put on the canvas is not the reference. Everything
That's right.
every
That's right.
brushstroke is just paint on a canvas.
Yeah.
It has
Yeah.
nothing to do with what that is, other than what you want it. How you are communicating what you see and what you feel and what you
Right.
think about that. So for me, exaggeration is just a tool that it wouldn't make sense to ignore it, unless I feel like, well, in this case I want to focus on shapes as they are and
Yeah.
focus on something else. But I really enjoy, I'm fascinated by paintings where stuff is exaggerated in a way. There's this painter, I forgot his name, maybe it'll come to me. He did this painting of himself sitting at a table with a slightly smaller version of himself on his lap, and it's
Yeah.
just
I think I know that guy, Ben.
Ben
Ben.
Smith.
Yeah. Yeah. I
Yeah,
know that guy. I know who he is.
it's so fascinating, and because as a painter, you can create something that doesn't exist in the real world, and I
Yeah.
love that. Where you can,
Yeah.
create, play with, reality has enough rules as it is.
Yeah.
We have
Right.
gravity and we have day and night and everything.
Yeah.
We have no control over. But when we paint, we can, decide what we want to do. That I just think that's awesome.
Yeah, absolutely. If you look at Rockwell's, this is easy to do. You just Google it, and you look at Rockwell's photos that he
Mm.
took, and then you look at his drawings of the same photo. He's always pushing. He's always exaggerating slightly, but he's actually making it better. He's not even using exaggeration to show off or to have any gag with it. He's not gagging anything. He's just saying he's making the photo alive is really
Yeah,
what he's
yeah, he's
doing,
storytelling.
and you can see it very clearly. And I mean, as much as so there's this thing, dynamic drawing, and by making something dynamic, that's another huge skill set and another part of style. And if you not that you would eat, believe everything that this artist has done. His name's Bern Hogarth, and
Okay,
Bern
yeah, yeah, yeah,
Hogarth,
yeah.
and he's got naked girls, naked bodies with teacup saucers for breasts, basically, and it's just like, dude, that looks weird. What are you doing? But the whole reality of what he teaches is more dynamic drawing, and so he shows where from the knee down to the ankle, it's actually bowed. And
Mm.
I can't tell you how many artists I see that do a straight leg,
Yeah,
and you
yeah.
just go like, "Wow, that's really crazy." All they have to do is just buy a Bern Hogarth book, spit out the bones, and use the things that work.
Yeah,
Not
yeah.
everything in that book is going to be gospel or perfect, but you take what works because he's saying enough good stuff. And those are the things I think that have changed me as well, or maybe added to my style, or that taught me things. So yeah, it's really interesting to see
Yeah.
that.
I just saw this documentary about Miles Davis on Netflix,
Mm.
and he was one of those artists that kept reinventing himself. So, when you hear Miles Davis, even when he is silent, you hear Miles
Yeah,
Davis.
yeah, yeah, yeah,
And
yeah.
uh, and he has his own way of playing, but every album that he created, he changed music. He was
Hmm.
playing uh, hip hop and dance
Yeah.
music in the 1970s,
Right.
laying the groundwork for what later became that. And I was wondering how you feel about that when, you know, you could say that's style, but at the same time, he's doing a completely different thing. So let's say you would now start, drawing architecture with a red crayon.
Yeah.
you know, uh, is that still Thomas Fluharty, and when does it stop to be your style?
That's a great question. I think it stops to be my style when I'm not having fun. You know what I mean? Like that to me, that's key. And you know, I just think also I'm trying to get myself into a place of just literally doing studies as opposed to being awesome or like, oh, this has to be great. Like, forget that. Like, I'm trying to get myself into that where I just literally want to do an honest study without posting, without doing anything. So if I can create and really enjoy it, to me,
Hmm.
that's also freeing in one sense because we live in a display world where we're displaying everything, we're showing everything, and we're drawing just to post and get likes or whatever. I'm not doing that anymore, but I have been guilty of it where I'm posting just to see if what's going on or get likes or whatever. That's earlier on or whatever. But I'm saying now, I think as we do this and we're more, online, that we just need to honestly get to a place where we can create, and try to just create a volume of 30 studies that we're not showing anybody. And if we put them up, that's fine. But you know what I mean? Like,
Yeah, that's
uh,
not the purpose.
yeah, yeah. And another thing that you actually mentioned, and it reminded me of something, was so Miles Davis was genius, and you mentioned something about that he doesn't have to play all the time, or he would just take off and not do one thing. So I think you did a drawing at one point about a month ago, and I said, "Wow, what you leave out is as good as what you
Hmm.
put in." And that was actually an interesting comment. It's not original with me. I've heard it said in a different way but it was actually very true. I wasn't saying it repeating anybody. It was just like I noticed that. I was like, wow, what you didn't put in, you didn't finish this line. That's as powerful as what you're drawing
Hmm.
in, and that's style. That's cool. But you're not doing it to be a style. You're just that thought just came to you as you're doing it. You go, yeah, and you move on. Where did that
Yeah,
thought come from? That's
yeah,
what
yeah,
I'm saying. That's what I find fascinating.
yeah.
That's what I find cool. And style is more DNA in one sense. It just
Mm.
all of a sudden I'm drawing something. I go, ooh, I like that. I'm not going to finish that. I think I did it on one of your drawings here. There's this thing I did of you today, and
Yeah,
just
that's
little
amazing.
this little piece over here, I
Hmm.
just didn't finish it because I just liked it.
Yes.
And
Wow.
it's like it's
I
like
love it.
it's like the things that we're not enslaved to, the things that come intuitively, let's say, they just come to us. That's style. That's DNA. That's just a thought, the way you're wired, the way that of how really good you are. So it's really a matter. If I'm saying anything, it's a lot of the times it's not everything that we're putting in. But it's what we're leaving out. And as I've studied plein air painting and still working on it, um, it's a matter of you don't have to put everything in. Real skill is putting in the essentials,
Mm.
putting in what is absolutely necessary to tell the story. And so people will say, "How do I know when I'm done?" And the saying basically goes, "When you've put in just what needs to be in there to tell the
Yeah.
story." You know what I'm
Yeah.
saying?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Wow, that's really cool. And then there's this one element of style that I think often gets mixed with what we've been talking about now, and that is style as something that is marketable. You as an artist, especially artists starting out, they're looking for their style desperately because they want to stand out, they want to be hired, so they want to have this unique voice that the people recognize. Basically, what you're doing. People when they see your drawings, they know, that's Tom Fluharty. That's what they're looking for, and it's really hard to deliberately, do that. But at the same time, it is kind of expected of you, especially starting out, because then you still have to make your mark as an artist. And I think that's a different thing than well, it may be the same thing doing what you love, but it's something that you cannot really force to come out. What are your thoughts on that?
That was a little long, and I'm not sure exactly what you're saying. Maybe re-clarify it again if you could.
Yeah. Well, there is, style, the thing that we love to do, and it's our own voice, that the way I see it, that what you're talking about is really what you do when you don't have to work for a client. It's your personal work, and you can do exactly what you love to do, and the choices you make then are based on the things that you love, and as a result something comes out, and that's you. And now there's also the student who wants to have this career, and they're looking for a style that's marketable. To me, sometimes it feels like a different thing, because or at least the way it's looked upon, because it's something that you're then deliberately searching for in order to sell your art, and to me that's the exact opposite, because on the one hand you have doing what you love, and it can change, because most artists I ask about style, they say, well, I'm not thinking of style, I just do what I love to do, and as a result it comes out the way it looks. And when you start out and you want to create this style, it's more something that you try to force, because you want, it becomes something marketable. So would you have advice for people starting out?
Yeah, again, it's a matter of stop worrying about it. That's the first thing. Stop worrying about style. It's like, I don't even know the right analogy, but just stop worrying about style and start creating. Keep creating. And if something takes off, if you have a style that is selling, that's dangerous in one sense, because then that's all the clients want. And you might go, I hate this style. It just happens to sell, but I am a frustrated artist because this is all they think about. It's like you get a job as an actor as a garbage man. Oh, dude, I saw you in that movie. You were awesome as that garbage man. Hey, I got this new movie. Would you want to be a garbage man in my movie? And it's just like all he's getting is garbage man roles, And it's just like this style it can pay your bills, but don't worry about it if you're young. You just need to draw, and you need to draw and paint as much as possible, and you just need to work on creating. And that's as simple as it gets. I mean, even building a following, it's just like, you could follow some ideas about how to gain followers, but at the end of the day, you just need to just keep drawing and painting and studying with great people.
Yeah.
So it's like this whole idea of I'm looking for a style. That's not really proper. As far as I see it, I don't think that's proper. Yeah, you could try to come up with a style that you think is going to sell, and it just might get you some work. That's fine. But at the end of the day, my style is because I've been doing this 36 years. And somebody said, art is cool if you can get past the first 40 years. You know what I mean? Like anyone that I know in their 50s, and you're 40 now, is that right? You're 40?
41.
Yeah, okay. So that's good. You're there. If you can get up to be 40, you got it. Don't worry about it. Just keep creating, keep studying, go to great painters and just take their, classes, try to go to, ateliers and study with great people. That repetition, that constancy is going to make you, turn you into who you really are. You know what I'm saying? And It's just like you're eventually going to throw a baseball awesome as you've thrown that baseball so many times. And you know, when we were moving, I found all these drawings and images that I made, had created, trying to get work, trying to find my style. I went to SVA, School of Visual Arts, and started taking this painting class because all I was doing was markers and doing storyboards. And then I needed to learn how to paint because I got to get in the magazines. And so I went and studied with this teacher, and I learned acrylic painting. And I just started creating these paintings that would get work in magazines. And I went around to all these magazines and Reader's Digest, and they looked at my work and says, yeah, you know, it's good, you know. Your work looks like, and, you know, just fill in the blank. They would fill it in, you know. And, you know, technically I'd be like, this is as good as theirs, or whatever I would say, some dumb comment like that. And I was just ignored. And because I needed time. It's a crock pot. This is a marathon. This isn't a sprint.
Yeah.
And there's no 17-year-olds winning Wimbledon. I'm sorry. No 17-year-olds are crushing it as artists.
Yeah, or even the people who are, you know, teaching the workshop or on stage at Lightbox, they're often artists. You know, they're not 17 either. You know, because it takes time to get to a certain level. It's just you have to put in the work.
Yeah, and they're not awesome at everything either. Like, this guy might be amazing at portraits, but have you ever seen him exaggerate? He can't do exaggeration, let's just say. Or, hey, what does his dogs look like? Have you ever seen him draw dogs? Have you ever seen him do a plein air painting?
Because like, he's probably not interested in it even.
Exactly. Yeah. But my point is nobody has a slam dunk on everything.
Exactly, yeah.
And that's encouraging. But if you could do what you love, that's going to create your voice. That's going to separate you because you're doing what you absolutely find that draws and keeps your attention.
Yeah, and that's what you'll be best at. You know, nobody will be able to compete with you when that's, you know, the direction you'll follow.
Right on. Absolutely.
Shall we take a question from people? Okay, so what do you think would be the foundation any artist should study before working in developing their own style?
What's the question?
So what do you think would be the foundations any artist should study before working in developing their own style?
I kind of said it, basically. Depending on how old you are, go study with somebody great. And you buy some really good solid books. Drawing Comics the Marvel Way is a gigantic, massive, simple book you can buy online. Stanley and John Buscema, amazing book of just complete basics of perspective, foreshortening, grid, drawing on a grid pattern, perspective, anatomy, just gesture drawing. It's so cool. It's simple. $20, you got that. Read that book, draw from that book, right? But if you live in a certain town, wherever you are, Google and build your skill sets around developing as an artist with drawing and painting, and go to life drawing and study with great painters. Like my goal isn't to be a plein air painter and go out and paint landscapes, but I really want to do that. That's not my main passion or my passion primarily, but I studied with Joe Paquette and I still want to study with him, but he taught me I wasn't studying with him to go paint outside. I wanted to learn how to paint and how to think and create. So these are the things you can do by studying with great people. Even if it's online, study with great people, these concepts that are rooted not in particular, like, oh, show me how you did a bush again. How did you do a cloud? Oh, I just did a cloud like Josh Clare. Ooh, I figured out how to do a cloud. No, Josh was doing his own clouds, right? So it's like, I don't want to know how Josh does a cloud. I want to know the idea behind the cloud. I want to know the idea behind a bush, behind landscape, the sky. You know, I need to understand principle and not just particular. So those are the things that you should be working on. Just bottom line, develop and develop your skill sets so that you're a complete artist, not just an illustrator that's just copying a photo. Does that make sense?
Yeah, absolutely. And don't forget to mention your own course at Schoolism, the drawing fundamentals is a great way
Right.
to start.
Yeah, it's a good starting
I,
place.
and I think there are many books and courses to be found when it comes to fundamentals. Marcos Mateo Mestre has a good book
Awesome.
on drawing techniques. Um, Overall, I think I think Rembrandt even said the best way to learn to paint is to paint,
Right,
and I
right.
think
Right on.
just make pencil mileage, just keep drawing and drawing,
Yeah.
because when you're doing this, you will find the things that you find difficult. If you find
Yeah.
yourself hiding the hands because you don't know how to draw them,
Yeah.
that's probably the thing you should be studying. And
Yeah.
what I try to do is to become my own worst critic,
Hmm.
in a sense that I try to be the one who's able to spot what's wrong in my drawings, because if I can
Yeah.
see it, I can fix it.
Yeah. Right, right.
And then there's also always areas where you don't know what you don't know. So and
Right
for
on.
that it's really valuable to have a great teacher, someone
Yeah.
that you respect and admire, where
Right
you
on.
feel like when this person says something about my work, because you can show your mother, but
Yeah.
there's a great chance that she will love anything you do.
Oh, yeah. Right, right, right.
So it's good to find the right mentor, someone that you
Exactly.
trust and believe in,
Yeah.
and you know why it is from this person you want to learn.
Yeah, yeah. That was I would call that like the 10,000 hour rule where you just put in a bunch of repetition. That's what's always preached, and I preach that. But I want to revise it. If I were to put a lens on top of it, it's informed repetition. It's repetition of principle of the right ideas,
Mm.
not just drawing wrongly for 10,000 hours, but
Mm.
drawing correctly and
Yes.
drawing subjected to somebody better than yourself. Like that's what we need. We need oversight. Like I've said, it's a community project. This is not a solo endeavor. We're not like, oh, I'm a self-made artist. Dude, there's nobody like that. Absolutely no one in the entire universe that's a self-made artist. If they are, they're probably weak and lame. It's the great artist that it's a community project. Sargent had a teacher, right? Everyone,
Yes,
everyone. Bouguereau had a teacher.
of course.
Insane. So, we
Yeah,
need each other.
yeah,
You know.
absolutely. Um, the Madness of Space asks, is it harmful to think about style while you're learning technical skill? So I think that's not a problem at all, if it doesn't interfere with the thing you're trying to learn. So if you want to learn, let's say, rendering light and shadow, and you find it hard to do, and then you say, well, this is my style, I just use black and white, and use these graphic shapes, and that's it. Then you're not going to learn how to render these volumes.
Mhm.
So then your style will be limiting the thing you're trying to learn. But if you are drawing gestures, and you feel like, I see what this is about, but I want to exaggerate, that's going to help you understand gesture, and it can be part of your style. And also, I think when you're just starting out, you just need to learn the basics, because it's like walking. When a baby starts to learn how to walk, they can't expect of themselves to dance like a ballerina. You need to be able to take the steps first before you can even think about that. But when you have some skills, you already have the preference of things you love to draw, and that will eventually lead to your style. So I think it's always a good thing to have that in mind, because that's also what gives you joy. You can
Right.
study everything, but if you don't know what you're studying for, it doesn't make sense. So it's
Yeah.
if you don't like drawing portraits, you just want to paint landscapes, it doesn't make sense to study, the anatomy of the face and stuff. You
Right.
just
Right.
need to go out and paint landscapes. That's the way
Right.
to do it then. And you can technique and style, I think they can go hand in hand. And maybe sometimes you want to focus on just studying, just to get some knowledge, and then you go to, painting just for fun, and you will find that you can use the things that you have learned. So I don't see that as a strict separate thing.
Yeah, it's well said. I think a few things come to my mind as well. Like, is another thing you can do to work on your style is to shut the books. Shut the books that are around you. Turn off Sebastian Kruger. Turn off, Bouguereau. Turn these guys off. Don't have them constantly in front of your face. Just draw for a while on your own. Paint for a while on your own. You don't. Yeah, it was freeing. I mean, I remember when I first discovered Sebastian Kruger in like 1992 or something. I don't even know how old I was. I was maybe 30 something, and I was like, "What the hell was this?" Like, this guy was like insane. I was like, "What?" And he was just crazy. I was like, "I never seen that before," and it was a bit intimidating because I was like, "I know," you know what I mean? Like, what? And it's like at some point it's like it might weaken you, but then it strengthens you, that it encourages you on. It doesn't discourage you and shut you down where I'm just going to give up. It's like it should weaken you at first, and then it should strengthen you, and then you shut the books and move on. But the problem is if you keep Sebastian's book in front of you, and he's a great artist. This is not a knock towards Sebastian. What I'm getting at is if these books are open, I can't see you anymore. I can't see your style. Like there's a lot of people that are so inspired by Sebastian, and eventually you just want to shut the books and move on, and pick them up from time to time and look back and say, wow, that's beautiful. Yeah, I love this about his work. But then move on. Like, I'm heavily inspired by Michael Ramirez, who's an editorial cartoonist. He's my friend, and I am so inspired by Michael's drawings that I'm stealing from him 99.9%. But I've looked at his work. I don't have it open anymore, but it's almost like once I draw a face, it's like WWMD. What would Michael do, And the way that he draws an airplane, the way that he draws a gun, the way that he draws a foot. Jack Davis had the same effect on me. You know what I'm saying? All of us. So it's almost like, Drucker as well. You just set these guys aside and then you just start drawing. But that, again, this takes years. So as the question is, have your focus on it. Always have it out in your mind, like, what is my style? But that's like it's just like style. I was going to ask you this. If you were to define style, what would be, so we could have a definition on it, what would be a succinct, very clear definition of style?
Wow. Let me think. We'd have to look, search for it. Let's describe it first, because I like to compare it to a voice that you have. Maybe style would be the way that you naturally do things, but then trained.
Yeah, that's good. I like it. I think when you said the way, it came to my mind as I was thinking about this question about 5 minutes ago was, there's a scripture in the Bible that says the way of a serpent, the way of an eagle, right? And it's like you stop, you're driving down, you see a deer going boing, boing, boing. You stop and you go, oh my goodness, that's insane. And you marvel at the way this deer just ran, the way. It's really, that's what a style is. It's the way you draw, the way you think, the way you paint, the way you sit, the way, the way a serpent crawls across the rock. Like, it doesn't even look like it's moving. It's just like, and it's just like, go, oh, whoa, did you see that? And you say something, right? It's the way.
Yes.
And you said it, the way. And I think that might be it. It's the way you draw, the way you think, the way you are,
yes.
Right?
Exactly. Yeah, it is the way you are, because you can't. Actually, it's funny that people are searching for their style, because it's, in a way, it's something you can't even escape from. There's no way that you could draw the way I do, because it's not just, the drawing that you see. It's the way as a 3-year old, I learned to hold my pencil.
Yeah.
I developed this way of holding my pencil, actually in a way that teachers in schools said it was completely wrong.
Yeah. Right.
Uh,
Right.
and that and everything, my experiences, my physique, everything
Right.
is
Right. Right.
working to. So in fact, my whole life and
Yeah.
everyone that has influenced me is the result of that, and all the hours I spent drawing.
Right on.
That's it's so
Yeah.
in a way, uh, uh, every drawing is a reflection of me, and
Yeah.
and
Right.
so when you look at it like that, it's just impossible to try and emulate someone else's style, because it's
Yeah.
just trying to be someone else.
Yeah. It's almost like saying I didn't discover this style; it just discovered me. It's sort of like Jimi Hendrix is
Yeah.
just like the guitar found me.
Yes.
And you know what I mean? That's what he says, something like that. It's just almost like uh, style isn't something you just stumble upon. It's something that comes out. And again, like you said, it's an inspiration of all of this making of years of teachers, inspiration, studies, sketching, failures,
Yeah.
and it's just going to come out, and it's just going to take some time.
Yeah, absolutely. Let's see another question coming up. Do you have examples of multi-talented people able to efficiently work in different style and answer a brief in completely different ways? Um, well, I always think, uh, th- that what anybody could do that, if you would say, uh, I want you to draw a portrait of me, and with the one portrait you can only use highly saturated colors, and
Yeah.
with the other portrait you can only use a brush this big.
Yeah. Yeah.
Then as a result you will get these completely different results. So
Yeah.
I don't think style is a limitation. I think it's more like that painting with highly saturated colors that you make and that I will make still will look completely different because of who we are.
Yeah.
And so
Right.
the style kind of seeps in, even if you
Hmm.
try to escape it. So I think, but are there artists? I think I think Ian McCaig is an artist who can do many different things.
Yeah.
I think there are several artists out there who can really adapt to different styles.
Yeah, I think the word that keeps coming into my mind is knowledge, and what I mean by that, it's like if I gave you a burnt match head, you could take that burnt match head and make a charcoal drawing out of that burnt match head, because you have knowledge, you have a structure system in place, like a knowledge, you have the depth of years of study, and the medium is a moot point, really. It might be a learning curve where it might take you a while to figure it out, but I think you did it on something else just recently. You gave yourself these problems with this little crappy paint, and you worked your way out of it, and you started sweating, and you started getting nervous, and you started sucking for a while, and it looked like you were sinking, and then you patched the hole up in the boat, and then you started floating again, and then, you know what I mean? Like, it's just like that knowledge is always going to rescue you, because you can pull yourself out. It may not be like your most perfect piece, but it doesn't matter. Everything is still there based on your knowledge. But it all goes back to the idea of just study as much as you can with great people, absorb, work on rounding out your skill sets, and just studying, because medium it's a moot point, really.
Yeah. Let's see. Um, Vico Friedley says, I've been trying for some time to design characters based on famous actors, but I've been having trouble getting a likeness in a cartoony style. Do you have any tips for accomplishing this? So it's funny. I had a conversation with Marcelo Vignali
Mhm.
about your work, because Marcelo he teaches the what's it called, the
The fractal method.
fractal method.
Yeah, yeah,
And
yeah,
so it's his way of looking at reality, or the things that he draw in terms of design. So he looks at the big shape first, like a
yeah,
fractal.
yeah.
Looks at the
I
big
saw that.
because the fractal is this shape, and when
Yeah,
you zoom in, it's the same
yeah,
shape, smaller and smaller, and keeps
yeah,
repeating. So that's how he looks at design. So if he looks at the model, he looks at the big
hmm,
shape first,
yeah.
and then
Right.
he carves out smaller
Yeah.
pieces, and then
Right.
he starts
That's
adding
awesome.
detail. So, and
That's
then he
awesome.
was talking about your work, and he said, well, you might not be aware of it, but you're doing exactly that. You know, the way you draw these big shapes, and then you know, you add detail, but it's all
Yeah.
design. You know, it's
Yeah.
a
Totally. Yeah.
relationship of different elements on the paper, and
Right.
they have a certain balance. You know, there's
Yeah.
so much darkness, there's so much
Yeah.
light, line
Yeah.
versus
Yeah.
big areas.
Yeah.
And when you look at a face, it's basically the same thing. And
Yeah.
there's this uh, I saw this on online sometime, where they had photos of celebrities. They had two pictures next to
Yeah.
each other, you know,
Yeah.
Brad Pitt
Yeah.
and Tom Cruise, and then
Yeah.
the image switched to George Clooney and someone
Yeah.
else, and they kept changing. But you had to look in the middle, and because of that, you're not focusing on who they are, but all you see is
Yeah.
the how the shapes change. And so after a while, it feels like these faces are really
Yeah.
deformed. They look really weird because
Yeah.
you're not looking right at them, but in the corner of
Yeah.
your vision, you see shapes changing, and that's
Right.
basically, you know, I don't think we look at all the details to recognize someone. We see the big shapes, and
Yeah.
that's why we can recognize someone from a far distance. And
Right
I
on.
think, in a way, that's how you have to start looking at, you know, what if I would have to use only a few lines or a few shapes?
Yeah.
You know,
Right.
how could I depict this person? And I'm not
Yeah.
talking about, you know, when you're drawing Charlie Chaplin, you put the
Hmm.
hat and the mustache and the
Yeah.
cane,
Yeah.
because that's a narrative way
Yeah.
of depicting Charlie Chaplin. But
Right.
you want to look at the shapes, and you know what shapes. You know,
Yeah.
is this a rectangular head, or is it a circle?
Right on.
And
Right.
the nose, is it at the bottom of the face, or is it really
Yeah.
long, or you
Right.
know,
Right.
and how are these shapes related? And if you can simplify that to
Yeah.
the essence, that
Yeah.
might give you a start on how to look at these shapes, because you know it's also something that is, it's strange, because you know when you draw a caricature of Donald Trump, you might squash his face all the way like that, and
Yeah.
you know,
Yeah.
and then Steve Brodner does a character of Donald Trump,
Yeah.
and he does it like this, and then
Right.
now I do it, and I
Yeah.
twist it, and you know, and
Yeah.
they can all look exactly like Donald Trump, so
Yeah.
or anyone else, and so it's, you have to find out what stands out to you. What is
Yeah.
it to you that
Yeah.
is so specific about this
Hmm.
person? And that is what you need to bring out. And that's why I think
Yeah.
exaggeration is you know, you said that some people see that as a bad thing. I see it as
Yeah.
um, speaking clear. You know, if
Hmm.
art is communication, it's just one way of being really clear about what it is you want to communicate. And if you know, if I
Yeah.
want people to hear me, I will speak a little louder so they
Yeah.
hear me.
Right.
That's the
Right.
same thing. You know, you
Right.
just
Right.
speak a little louder so
Yeah.
that it's clear what it is that you notice about the thing that you're drawing.
Yeah, I would add this too. If this person, this artist, is talking and asking the question, "How do you get a likeness?" I have a few things that I do that I think are helpful, and I think they're universal. They're not like just particular to me. Like if you know, this is just only what I do. But I think these are, again, it's rooted in logic. So it would be that when I drew you just recently with this, is your eye, you have, it's always in the eyes. A likeness is always in the eyes. If you can nail the eyes on Mick Jagger, you put those eyes on a dog, you say, dang, that dog looks just like Mick Jagger. And it's like, because you nailed the eyes. If you don't have the eyes, you're going to miss. It's going to be almost. And so all I'm doing is, I don't think this is a great exact spot on look-alike. I think it's more, I went for the essence on this. The other thing is, I had a very low res photo. So all I wanted to do is capture the shapes of the shadows and the angles of the eyebrows. And so if you can capture angles and shapes and shadow shapes, that is key to getting likeness. And so, for example, if your eyebrow is at this angle, or your nose is at this angle, all you got to know is what's the angle of this? And you say, well, the angle of that is a 40 degree, because a 60 degree, because look at that angle. Well, that's not absolute either. You just need to know where the 90 degree is. And once you know where the 90 degree is, look at the edge of your paper. Look, if you're in a room, at the door jamb, where the door is, or the window. Those are 90s. And then if an eyebrow is slightly off of the horizontal, it's just slightly off, nail that angle. And if the mouth is tipped at that angle, nail that angle. Say, well, what angle is that? Well, I know this is a 90. Well, that mouth is tipped at about a 10% angle. Okay, I'm going to go draw myself their mouth at a 10% angle. I guarantee you, if you captured the angles and the shadow shapes on that person, whatever, you're going to get a likeness. It's without a doubt. It will look like them. And then you bring in what you said with shapes, and asking yourself, well, what is the shape of their head? Where does Donald Trump's face fit? It's always like, at least from my observations, it's 2/3 mass of flesh, mouth, hot air. And then up here, this little third is just the eyes and the flat mass of hair. So it's like a third, 2/3 mass real estate of mouth and hot air, nose, jaw, chin, whatever. But this is the story for, well, this is actually 2/3 story with Donald Trump. Well, you know what I'm saying? So it's like, it's 2/3 and then a third of eyes and hair. Does that make sense?
Yeah,
That's for me.
Yeah, well, I think that the last part where you talk about proportions, that is when it comes to caricature, I think a very important thing, because there, you know what the angles are, but you're pushing them and you're pulling them, and right. That is often for people a difficult thing to grasp, because you're talking about getting the likeness of the eyes, but now you're suddenly stretching the eyes and it still looks like this person. So right. How to deal with that. And I noticed, as I heard you speaking, I understand what you're saying, but I can also imagine that it's really hard to actually now know it from words. In the end, it's just a matter of drawing and drawing and drawing. And when it comes to caricatures, you can also study, caricatures of others that you feel are well done, because you have the person they are depicting. You have the reference of that too. You can just look up images and see, well, this guy has a big nose, but this caricature has a really small nose, and still it has great likeness. Why is that? How does that relate to what I'm seeing? And so I think, especially if you want to go into caricature or use caricature for your character designs, studying, and also someone like Al Hirschfeld, he simplifies so much that in his designs it's really clear to see what he did, because there's no lighting, there's no paint, brush strokes, and all. It's just that's what it is, just those few lines, and that's Ringo Starr or whoever. And so that might be a good thing to do as well.
I mean, he to me, like you said, he used lines to capture, and just the right amount. So He's on a whole nother planet. So for sure.
He's amazing.
Yeah, absolutely. You have any more?
Let's see. Would you agree that style is only a problem the moment you associate it with success, views, or fame?
Yeah, that's great. I agree totally. I mean, I wouldn't have anything to add to that. That makes total sense. I mean, to just add in a little bit more, a thought that came into my head was, it's almost like the people that are worried too much uh, are holding on to this idea of style. The people who have worked beyond that and they're older, let's say, or they've kind of figured it out, it kind of came to them, those are the ones that aren't worried about it. It's almost like I never really worried about my style. I did look at it. I knew what C.F. Payne's work looked like and looked at his work or whatever when I was looking at illustrators. But, you know,
Yeah, but if you look at his work right now, it looks completely different than what he did 10 years ago. Actually, you mentioned a while ago that you were looking at the first blue line drawings that you did and
yeah,
compared it to what you were doing now. And you know,
yeah,
there was this whole world of difference because you
yeah,
have done so many of them and you
yeah,
now you know that pencil so well. So
yeah,
and the paper you use, you know, that those
yeah,
materials they become like second nature also, and
yeah,
so you can really breathe through those pencils. And you know that's also you know, from a distance looking at it, you know, I can see that drawing of 10 years ago. Oh, that's Thomas Fluharty. But
yeah,
if you would zoom in, you are in a completely different place than you were 10 years ago. And it's not a
right,
fixed thing, you know, it keeps evolving.
right,
So it wouldn't make sense to hold on to this is my style, this is how I do things, because
yeah,
then you're just repeating something you already
yeah.
did. And so it's alive, you know, it keeps evolving. And also for people, how do you feel about people who are copying your style? Because since you started using that blue pencil, well, actually you gave me one, so I'm now
Yeah.
also, you know, using it from
It's a
time to
cool
time.
pencil, right?
It
Right.
is, but I've also seen drawings where people are really trying to emulate your style, or you know, using the pencil, thinking that that will, you know, solve all the
Right.
problems. You know, how do you
Right.
feel
Right.
when
Right.
people
Right.
try to copy your style?
Yeah.
Is that a problem for you?
No, it's not. It's actually cool that you don't set out to inspire anybody. That's not how it works. You know, like I will inspire someone today. Again, I didn't try to. I didn't just make a choice, a conscious choice that this is my style. It was just I paid attention to things that have been said to me along the way. So, for example, Gary Locke said, "Dude, your drawings are so cool." And I just remember that. I remember going to Schoolism Comic Con and they had a drawing I did of Tom Hanks, up, just a portrait. And I was drawing in just brown, you know, I was just drawing, just drawing. But the thing is, I have thousands and thousands of hours of drawing, period. So that's the bigger appeal of my work. Um, and my paintings are not as big of an appeal. I'm not worried about it. I'll develop as a painter the rest of my life if I have another 30 years or whatever, right? Like, I'm not worried about it. What I really am doing is I'm putting my drawings into my paintings and I'm painting on top of them. So this paying attention to what people say is key to say. And I used to take my work into Kenny Ball and I said, Ken, you know, look at my work, and he would critique it. And I would show him like a guy running, jogging, and it was representational. It'd be like, oh, Tommy, this is nice. I like this drawing. Then I would take him in a guy that was doing something funny. He'd bust into laughing. Tommy, you got to do this. So when he started, I saw his response. I realized I was touching people in a different way when I did funny, because it's me. It's how I'm wired. So paying attention to what people, how people respond is key to know you're going in that direction. And more than likely, if they're responding to something you're doing, that's pretty much the way you're wired, that you should be going in that direction. So anyways, all that to say is this. As I did the blue line stuff, I put it up. It got a huge response, but it was rooted in drawing, period. I wasn't worried about trying to get people to notice me as a painter. It was just like, I love drawing, and then I was on to the next one, and I was on to the next one, and I was on to the next one. But it was working out these ideas and these concepts of drawing that I just said, I see this place I want to go, and I just kept doing it over and over, and then I would exaggerate, and I'd be like, yes, yes. So then people would write me, and then people started drawing in that way. And I don't mind. I mean, however however people are excited to draw, that's what matters to me. If people are drawing like crazy, that's all I could ask for. Like, that's so cool. All I would say is this: know this, if you see me scribble something in, I'm never doing that for style. I'm using it, principle is behind that. So if I have a mask, let's say a big black mask or a big dark background on these maestro dudes, and I color it in as hard as I can, and I have these scribbles, and then I change the scribble this way, and it just looks messy. Well, I decided that, hey, I can mask that in like an 8, and then I can come in a little bit darker and break that shape up with some design and some strokes. Again, it's rooted in principle. It's not trying to create a style. Then if I have a master that's a shadow mask and it's a 7 value and it's not too dark, I'll break that up with scribbly lines just to hold that mask and create a little more interest in that area. But I don't want to draw everybody over there to say, oh, look how cool that reflected light is. No, I'm just saying I'm massing things in. That's what's before anything. Again, it goes back to principle. Does that make sense?
Absolutely.
A shadow mask on an eye is not me showing off. It's me massing the eye in, adding some variety, some little bits of detail in darker spaces, darker shapes, and letting that mask hold its own. And people are like, dude, I love your style. And that's so cool. But I'm just really massing things out and going back to fundamentals of classical instruction, which is available to anyone. Does that make sense?
Yeah, absolutely. You're starting with what it is you want to express rather than what the end result has to be, right?
Exactly. Yeah, totally. Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'm working on what I'm doing when I'm doing these drawings is not to show off. I'm trying to work on tones. I'm trying to work on value. I have this drawing I'm doing of Wonder Woman. I don't even know how I got onto Wonder Woman all of a sudden, but there's this mass on her neck that it's just, and the hair is in there. I'm just trying to keep that as a mass and work and control that. You know what I'm saying? So it's just like, it's always trying to work on these ideas.
Yeah, I wanted to say something about what you said earlier, where you said the responses of people is key. I think people responded so well to these drawings because it started with you doing something you really love. Because I think the danger could also be, if I listen to what people are saying, then I start, catering to their needs and starting to drift away from what I love to do. I think it also started with something that you're passionate about, and then
which was drawing,
exactly.
Number one.
And then after that, I think comes what you said, trying to feel, does this, because in art you're communicating, so you're actually trying to figure out, is this actually communicating? Is what I feel, is it coming across? And then you found that, and correct me if I'm wrong, but you found that, humor is part of what you love to do, and then so this became the direction you pursued.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, it's like I said, it's all of my loves into one thing. Yes. So the other thing that I don't want to do is I don't want to do pick a photo that everybody has seen. Because it's just like, I mean, look, how many times can we see Edgar Allan Poe's face drawn from that one photo?
I know.
Like literally, like I look at that and I'm like, I think I've even drawn the thing, but I'm saying, I want to try to find something that's really cool, a great photo that I can work off of and jump off of, and use other photos as well to blend it together. Even take my own pics, Do you have
a problem using photos that are not your own?
I don't have a problem with it at all. I'll credit the photographer as well. And I'll do the side-by-sides as well. I've done that where I just post to say, hey, look, I'm not making this up. I can draw out of my head. I've done it for 30 years. It's storyboards. But I just don't like my work like that. I don't like making something up. I can do it. I would encourage you to draw out of your head as much as possible. But a computer only runs with software. You have to put information in your head first. And then when you're free to start drawing, keep practicing that drawing out of your head. That's amazing. That's cool. I marvel at that. I just like my drawings better when I'm inspired by something I can see.
Yeah.
And so that's just me. That's just me. And but I'm just saying, so if I find that's what keeps me so fired up. I just did this. I'm working on this right now. It's this Wonder Woman, and
Wow.
it's just, I was inspired by this sketch that this guy did. I don't even know. It was just this crazy cool sketch, and I just took a screen snap of it. I'll show you the sketch. And I said, man, that's really cool. I want to do Wonder Woman, but I've got all this other work to do. But this is Wonder Woman by I don't know how you say his name.
Wow. That's
but I was
cool.
so moved by that. And so I just took a screen snap of it and said, okay, I want to just draw in the morning and just discover and just experiment this cool Wonder Woman.
Cool.
So I'm not done with it because I got other things I got to do, but I'm saying, you know what I mean? Like I'm super, you know, those are the things that keep me inspired.
Yeah. I have the same thing where when you work from reference, you have this information that comes from outside, something to respond to, which is, to me, gives just something extra because I already know everything that's in my mind. That's what it feels like to me, you know. And when you have this reference, or you go out and paint what you see, then you have this, because it will still go through this filter, and you will, you know, make it your own. You create your own composition. I really love that too.
Yeah, absolutely.
I have a few more questions here. Tim wants to know, can Tom talk a little bit about the style of that insane dog painting on his easel?
Oh, can you see it?
It's really dark, but
yeah. Well, thank you very much. So what was the question?
If you can talk a little bit about the style of that painting.
Yeah. Okay. So the style of it, it's just it's sort of a mixture between Dutch Flemish and direct painting. And so I obviously have a painting class on schoolism, the Dutch Flemish way. But I don't really paint only Dutch Flemish. I don't paint Dutch Flemish. I use a part of it. And so when the style, it's not so much my style, but it's just, again, my painting style is a mixture of things. And so it's a mixture of Dutch Flemish, and it's a mixture of direct painting. And so the Dutch Flemish, all I did was when I do my drawing, I draw it all traditionally, scan it in, assemble it in Photoshop, design it, look at it, flip it, look back at it, send it to you. I think I sent my other dog painting to you, Wouter. I sent it to Davey O'Keefe. I sent it to Gary Locke. Sent it to Kevin Sacco. I sent it to these guys to just get a fresh look at it. And then I just look at it, and then I sit it there for about maybe a year. It just sat there, and I didn't have any green light on it. No one had really, I didn't have a way to make money off of it. So I just didn't want to spend a whole month and a half painting it if it wasn't going to go somewhere. Although it was something it was really, I wanted to do this. But then when my agent said, hey, we want to make open edition prints of that, I was like, awesome, greenlit, bam. And so then I tweaked it, ended up looking at one of the actual, I'll show you, I'll go get it real quick. Now, you just see it. I just want to show you this dog. Let's see here. Hold on one second. So there's a dog. There's a dog right here. That I had another dog in there. Now you probably can't see it because it's all like sort of. But there's a dog, I don't know, but this dog right here, he was another dog. He was a Sheltie, I don't know, he was another dog. And I looked at him, after looking at him for 6 months, I said, right when I got ready to transfer, I said, that doesn't really, it's not as funny, it's not as cool as it can be. And then I had this really cool picture of this of my daughter's dog, and I love this dog. I just said, I think this dog needs to be in there. So I took it out, and anyways, then I transfer it up. I put it on I shoot a screen snap of it on my Mac, the drawing, and then I put that on a USB stick, and I put that USB stick into an Epson projector, and it projects it up onto the canvas, New Traditions art panels, and then I draw it with a brown line, and then what I do is I get a Old Holland raw umber, and I paint all the warm, it's a big wash. The board is stained with like a 3 value of just raw umber, and then I start painting in the dark places with about a 7 value, a number 7 value, 70% if you were to say 1 to 100. But because we're talking 1 to 10 values, it's about a 7 in just some of the dark ears, the dark spots for the nose, and it's just raw umber everywhere. But I don't paint grisaille in. I don't paint all the white in where the lights are hitting. I make sure all my darker values are supportive to support any color I'm going to throw on. But I can also paint those translucency and let some of that underpainting show through.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, absolutely.
Then I paint directly. So when I paint this dog over here, this American Bully, that's just complete direct painting. So I have a very clear light source as to light and dark. I have one direct light source coming from the top right, shining down. Everything's consistent. And I shoot pictures for it. My son-in-law posed for it. I found a lot of great pics of these dogs online that were just cool shots. I'll save them. If I find a great pug, I'll say, "Oh, that's an amazing face." I'll just shoot a screen snap and save it, and then I'll use other photos as well. And so this dog was American Gentleman. This I don't know if you can see it, but the Boston Terrier is the American Gentleman. I follow that dog, and it was just so cool. But then I put him on this body of Michael, I think, from The Godfather. But this is heavily influenced also by David O'Keefe. He did a really Godfather. Cool. He did a Godfather, and I completely used that template. So I'm ripping off David O'Keefe for this template.
Okay,
so
cool.
All credit, big shout out to David O'Keefe.
Wow,
He's one of my favorite artists. Yeah.
So how long does it take you to do a painting like that?
About 24 hours, basically. No. About a month and a half, I think, if I painted full time on it.
Okay.
About a month and a half, I could probably pull that off. The thing is it took me. Well, I started it somewhere around January, and I had other jobs going on, so I committed about a month and a half. I think it would take to paint something like that. I'm not totally done. I'm going to go back in and paint some brighter brights and open it up a little bit with the exposure. But it's pretty much there. Everything is completely there. But the main things, all my values are solved in my underpainting. How light and how dark something is.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Really cool.
Thanks, man. Thank you.
Cool. Shall we do one more question and then?
Sure.
Okay.
We can do 2 more.
Okay, 2 more. Let's see. I think I see at least one. Where do you get your inspiration from? For example, movies, books, music. Do you think this also influences your style?
Yeah, everything that you just mentioned. Books, movies, the internet, just like Instagram, where someone does a drawing and all of it. Like I said, just that Linda Carter that I'm doing, the Superwoman, was based off of just a sketch that somebody did that I just loved. So
do you have a plan or something? Because you have these periods where you focus on a specific subject. It can be dogs or people riding horses or conductors. And this Wonder Woman feels like it's more intuitive. Do you have a goal when you set out, to pick a theme, or do you have rules for yourself? Within this period, I can only draw horses, or how does that work?
Yeah, it's interesting. So that's a great question. So Yes, I have rules. I'm not going to draw Hillary just to post it. I'm not, you know. I'm very focused right now between dogs and cowboys. And between the dogs, I'm going to keep drawing dogs because I love them and they're really something I love to do. And I'm going to keep drawing them. But I want to monetize them. I want to make sure that if I do a painting like this, that I have an option to make at least two ways to make money. So the two ways that I make money off this painting, once I'm finally done with it, is I'm going to hand it off to my licensing agent, and they're going to do open edition prints of it. And so they'll be available like someone owns a framing shop. They'll say, oh, dude, I want to buy that print, put that in my store, and start selling that in my store, right? So always looking in terms of monetizing anything I do. So that's one way. Another way option is for puzzles. And I'm going to approach some puzzle companies and try to market it as a puzzle. I think it'll work as a puzzle. We'll see. I've been rejected in the past from puzzle companies as well. So it's interesting. So that's number one. It has to have a way to make money. Cowboys is something that is a money. It's a money arena. It's a money genre. People have money. I want to get this work into some galleries. I think it could sell. It's different. It's not. It might be completely misunderstood. Like, wait, that cowboy, that looks like a cartoon, or that cow, that horse's neck is too long. You know what? I don't want you to buy my drawing. I know there's a cowboy lover of Western art that'll say, wow, that's awesome and cool. Thankfully, I have some really great cowboy friend artists that are loving my stuff. So I know I'm sort of onto something. I just haven't approached any galleries yet, but that's next up. I just submitted something to some galleries today, but I'm just saying, if I can get these drawings into a gallery in the West, one gallery, all I need is one gallery that says, we think these would sell. And I'm also gonna do paintings if all of a sudden, and I'm already selling cowboy drawings as well. So it always has to make me money or I'm not gonna do it. Like Bouguereau said this, he said, I found that when I painted angels and demons and ghosts, that it didn't sell as much as angels and little girls with flowers. So looks like I got to start painting little girls with flowers. You know, I got to start painting angels. So
you mentioned that you're not drawing Hillary just to post it on Instagram. Does the fact that you do want to always, make money off the work, does that limit you in the things that you do in basically the way you mentioned? Like if if you just love drawing horses and you find out they won't sell, would you keep doing it or would you change?
Okay, perfect. That's a great question. I really enjoyed painting sharks, right? When I started painting sharks, I would just watch Shark Week. I had never, with my daughter, I was like, oh my gosh, these things are insane. Started following shark guys, shark photo guys on Instagram, and I was like, dang, these guys are awesome. Started drawing sharks, painting them. People were loving them and writing me and sending me the sharks, and I sold some of my shark paintings. And I said, okay, let's go down now to a yacht show where the money is, because these guys have $50 million in their yacht out there. Let's go down to a yacht show and see if we could sell these shark paintings and get in front of these guys. Went down there, spent $1,000 just to go down, had a wonderful weekend with my wife on whatever the island is down there, down in Florida. Went to the yacht show, couldn't get access to these yacht guys. They were like roped off. And I was looking at all the marine time animal artists, and their market was iPhone covers, prints, and I looked at it and said, this is not me. I'm not a marine time animal artist. I'm not a fish only guy. I'm not a cowboy artist only. That's why I'm spoofing it. When I grow up, I want to be a cowboy artist title. I'm spoofing it. I'm making fun of the idea that I'm not really a cowboy guy. But then I said in another one, but neither are the guys on the West Coast that are showing up with cowboy hats. They're not really cowboy guys either. All I'm trying to say is, you even look at the legends of cowboy art. The one dude lived in New York City and he painted cowboys.
Okay.
So I'm just saying, if we're really being honest, it might help if I wear a 10-gallon hat, but that's not totally legit. All I'm trying to say is, if something doesn't sell, I may not do it anymore. But I sell shark drawings a lot, and so I'll still do them from time to time. But in terms of my focus right now, it's basically I want to see if I can gain any interest in the cowboy world and see what happens. And also with dogs, I already have that already as a solid money maker. That's sort of, so I'm diversifying my skill, which is what Loish said as well. We diversify ourselves, and so you're not just a cowboy artist.
Yeah.
So that you know what I'm saying. So it's like I make money in a few different ways, but I'm always thinking of how can this. What are the two ways this can make money for me?
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, you have to be a businessman as well as an artist if you want to make a living doing it.
Right. Right. Right on.
Okay, so last question. By the way, Tim says, magnificent painting, a great conversation by a couple of great artists. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Tim. Thank you.
Do you ever collaborate with other artists?
No, I hate other artists. No. I don't think I've ever collaborated with. I mean, I've worked with great artists over the years with as a team, but I've never collaborated on a piece. Victor Kalvacek, who's a friend of mine, talked about maybe doing something where, he does a drawing and then he gives it to me and I do my drawing on it. That could be kind of cool. And then I send it to you and you do your drawing on this piece. That could be pretty crazy. So I've never done that though. But
no,
I think
neither have I. And I usually that doesn't work very well for me because I don't know. I just feel like what I make has to express. Well, I of course I do also collaborate with other artists on animation projects. Obviously,
right? Yeah,
we work
totally.
with a team there, and then also it happens where someone else takes a drawing and works on top of it. You're working together to create this goal, but then there's clearly this director who has the vision and who has the final say in what it needs to become. So, but when it's my own work, then I think I find it difficult to collaborate then, because then I feel like, well, this part in here, what's that for? It doesn't mean anything. I don't want to get rid of it. But then maybe that's the part that you love, and but it's worth the experiment.
yeah. It's interesting. It is interesting.
Cool.
Yeah,
well,
man.
It was great talking to you. Thank you very much for joining me.
Oh, Wouter, it's always awesome talking, and love you so much. And we'll do this again. I'm gonna do something on YouTube soon, and I'll hit you up and see if you can't be talking and stuff.
Yeah, very nice. And everyone who checked in, thank you very much.
Yeah, thanks
guys for asking questions. And I'll be back next week. Then I'll be speaking with Justin Coro Kaufman.
Oh man, awesome!
Yes,
awesome. What a great artist.
So yeah, absolutely.
That's awesome.
So I will see you next week.
All right, man. Later, guys.